If you like a cheeseburger, a McDonald's cheeseburger, a Diet Coke, which my boss loves.
The deaths of the two Kennedy brothers, John and Bobby, were tragic milestones in the lives of many boomers watching this right now.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
But while their deaths impacted our culture, it's the life of RFK Jr., Trump's appointee for the head of Health and Human Services, that threatens not just our culture, but our very lives.
I've known Bobby my whole life. We grew up together. It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets, because Bobby himself is a predator. Today, while he may encourage a younger generation to attend AA meetings, Bobby is addicted to attention and power. Bobby preys on the desperation of parents of sick children, vaccinating his own kids while building a following hypocritically discouraging other parents from vaccinating theirs.
Look, everything I'm going to tell you right now is a fact, proven through exhaustive studies from the Mayo Clinic to NIH to the CDC and thousands of trials. But you have to know this. Kennedy is a danger. He's lied about vaccines for years, even though at his hearing, you'll see the double standard.
Of Mr. Kennedy, what is so disturbing to me is that out of 330 million Americans, we're being asked to put somebody in this job who has spent 50 years of his life not honoring the tradition that he talked about at the beginning of this conversation, but peddling in half-truths, peddling in false statements, peddling in theories that, create doubt about whether or not things that we know are safe are unsafe. Not that every vaccine in America is unsafe, not that you can't possibly have an adverse reaction, but that parents and children in my old school district and school districts all over this country would be better off not getting vaccinated than getting vaccinated. Unlike his own children who were vaccinated, unlike the people he invited to his house in Los Angeles for their party who were vaccinated. For everybody else, it's about peddling these half-truths. And he says it with such conviction that you want to believe him.
Kennedy's lies about vaccines are bad enough as a well-known citizen, but as head of Health and Human Services, you want this guy?
There is zero evidence that the flu shot prevents any hospitalizations or any deaths. Number 3, the flu shot transmits the flu. In fact, if you get a flu shot, you're 6 times more likely to give somebody else the flu. And if you didn't get the flu shot, since we started mandating the flu shot to elderly people, those are the people who their life expectancy has dramatically gone down as the flu shot proliferated.
That's a verifiable lie. Every year, scientists track the effectiveness of the annual flu vaccine. And every year, dozens of studies document the vaccine's effectiveness against hospitalizations and deaths. And injected flu vaccines, they do not contain a live virus and cannot transmit the flu.
Not one of the 72 vaccines that are now mandated for our children have ever undergone a placebo-controlled trial prior to licensure. Not one of these has undergone a prior pre-licensure placebo control. And the polio may have had one post-licensing. Most of them haven't. And by the way, I think the polio vaccine did undergo a saline placebo trial prior to licensure, but not for safety. Only for efficacy.
Okay, here's some context. Some of the vaccines currently in use have indeed been tested against a placebo, where others are newer alternatives to vaccines that underwent placebo-controlled trials before approval. But a newer vaccine is often tested against an approved one rather than against a placebo to show that it's just as good as preventing disease. At his Senate hearings, Kennedy also testifies about what we should eat, implying if you get fat, you're on your own.
We need to focus more on outcome-based medicine, on putting people in charge of their own health care, of making them accountable for their own health care so they understand the relationship between eating and getting sick. I don't want to take food away from anybody. If you like a cheeseburger, a McDonald's cheeseburger, a Diet Coke, which my boss loves, and you should be able to get them. If you want to eat Hostess Twinkies, you should be able to do that. But you should know what the impacts are on your family and on your health.
But many of the people he's talking about live in food deserts where there aren't grocery stores, where type 2 diabetes is extremely prevalent. People living in South Central LA, single working moms who get home at 6:30 at night and don't have a Trader Joe's around the corner to offer to their kids. Instead, it's cheeseburgers that Fat Donnie eats. But even then, RFK lies about the problem.
48% of American teens are now diabetic. That's half the teens in this country. When I was a kid, juvenile diabetes was functionally at zero. The average pediatrician would see a single case of juvenile diabetes in his lifetime over a 40 or 50 year career. Today, half the kids that walk through his office door are diabetic or pre-diabetic.
He's lying again. It's not half the kids. The National Diabetes Statistics Report estimates that about 35 per 10,000 children and adolescents younger than 20, that is 0.35%, have a diagnosis of diabetes. So he's just making it up. He's making it up, but at least he's consistent. For years, Kennedy has questioned the safety of vaccines, including those for polio and measles, two diseases that continue to harm children, which should scare the shit out of you.
And Mr. Kennedy, I just have there are many things in the record, but I hope that you could answer these questions yes or no. I've tried to ask these in a manner that's faithful to what you actually said, because I didn't want to have a debate about whether you actually said them. So I'm asking you yes or no, Mr. Kennedy. Did you say that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people?
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just quoted an NIH-funded and NIH published study.
Did you say that it targets black and white people but spared Ashkenazi Jews?
I quoted a study, Your Honor. I quoted an NIH study that showed that
I'll take that as
certain
yes.
races
I have to move on, Mr. I have to move on. Did you say that Lyme disease is highly likely a materially engineered bioweapon? I made sure I put in the highly likely. Did you say Lyme disease is a highly likely militarily engineered bioweapon?
I probably did say that.
Did you say that?
And that's what the developer of Lyme
I want all of
disease
our
said.
colleagues to hear it, Mr. Kennedy. I want them to hear it. You said yes. Did you say that exposure to pesticides causes children to become transgender?
No, I never said that.
Okay, I have the record that I'll give to the chairman, and he can make his judgment.
But he really said it.
The capacity for these chemicals that we are just raining down on our children right now to induce these very profound sexual changes in them.
And probably his biggest lie is RFK saying that vaccines cause autism, which is a lie that started back in '98 by this guy, Andrew Wakefield. Wakefield's hypothesis was that measles, mumps, and rubella, MMR, that vaccine, caused autism. They offered no proof and the paper was redacted. But that was the advent of social media, and we know what happens to the truth on the internet.
The violence, the biting, the anger, the hitting, they just didn't exist when I was a kid. And now it's 1 in every 34 kids. In California, 1 in every 24, probably about 1 in every 17 boys. These are kids who will never throw baseball. They'll never go on a date. They'll never write a poem. They'll never pay taxes.
The reason autism numbers are up is because we've changed the definition to include the whole spectrum of people, from people as RFK described to Elon Musk. We live in a time where science and intelligence are under attack from carnival barkers and snake oil grifters, and RFK Jr. is the worst person at the worst time.
Goddamn right.
This is not a normal election.
Whether the women like it or not.
Suck my fat one.
I don't want to talk about this stuff. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
They're eating the dogs.
You're an idiot!
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.